What is up, you guys? How you doing? It's Kareem Jackson. You are live. It's so good to see you guys. I have a really kick-ass show tonight, you guys, because I am talking to Ambassador Emmanuel, you guys, about the question that I get asked a lot, believe it or not, here abroad. Why do Black Americans just not go back to Africa, go home to Africa? They see the news, they see all the drama, they see all the things that are happening right now to us, and they feel bad for us. They feel terrible for us. So I thought I would call one of my homies here, Emmanuel. He's in Nigeria, you guys. Actually, he's going to talk to us for a little bit about himself, of course. He's a fantastic singer, you guys. He is a fantastic social worker, you guys. He works in Africa. He's an ambassador of, I want to say, youth. And he has travels the world. He's been to France, he's been to Europe. He's sang all over the world as well. And we said this is a great topic for a lot of Black Americans that are out there, or a lot of Africans too, you guys, that are out there and they're curious about, how do I get back there? Where do I go? How is the life there? Should I go back? How is it? How is it being in Africa? How is it being abroad and all that great stuff? So we're going to bring him up, you guys. This is him right here, Emmanuel. So without further ado, you guys.
Hi to everyone, everyone watching us from across the globe.
Yes.
Saying a happy time to everyone.
I'm glad you're in the house. We can chit chat. I thought this was a really great topic that we could talk about for a little bit. A lot of Black Americans are looking to Africa and abroad in general on why they just shouldn't come home to Africa. So what do you think about that, brother? What do you think?
Yeah, a lot of times I get asked this every time I travel out of the country. What is Africa generally doing to make sure that people in diaspora, African Americans, would want to come back home? My reply sometimes to them is it's a two-way thing, because sometimes you may not be in a position to tell someone whether to come back home and all that. Home could be anywhere for some people. For someone else, home could just be America. For others, you still find people who come back to Nigeria. You mentioned African Americans are beginning to find their roots. So yes, some African Americans are privileged to be able to still see or trace their roots. But what about those who were sold into slavery, who can still find any relative, any traces, and all that? It becomes a bit difficult. Maybe I'm from Senegal. I want to go back to Senegal, but how do I even find people who are my blood? How do I find my relatives, my aunts, my cousins, my half brothers, and all that? It could become a challenge. And remember, it could bring about nostalgic feelings for them. There are people who have still not healed emotionally. So having to come back home might just be triggering a whole lot of emotions that being in America or being outside home, in quotes, had helped them heal. So everyone might not be as lucky as Obama, who found his roots in Kenya and also have been repeatedly going back to Kenya, like Akons and the rest. You mentioned Kim Kardashian and all of that. You can't take out that place. But one thing you also need to know, Africa also has to do a whole lot of luring. There has to be a lot of infrastructure, because come to think of it, there are people who've lived all their lives in America, great-grandfather, grandfather, and then father, and then some haven't even been to any part of Africa. And so telling them to come back home, are you also willing to give them the kind of life, the standard of life they are used to? It's not just enough to say, come back home. I know in Nigeria, the Diaspora Commission, under the able watch of Honorable Abike Dabiri, she's been doing so well. So every year she organizes a symposium, so to say, like a carnival, where all African Americans who want to can come back home. They take them to Badagry, where there is slavery market, where they can see where their forefathers were shipped from. They take them to very historic places and all that. But we are also saying, if African government make Africa, there is enough security, there is power supply, and the business environment is friendly for entrepreneurs, literally and ordinarily, every African American will want to come back home. Every African American will want to do business back home, because also you're coming back home is not until you physically come back home. So when you relate, when you do businesses, when you have investments, so to say, you could be anywhere in the world and you do your investment. So, these are the things also we need to, and then people look at the standard. Are you secured when you come back? Kenya is doing a lot in terms of making African Americans or people in diaspora come back, because originally Kenya is a tourist attraction. I was in Kenya a couple of times and I see they virtually make money from tourism. They really don't have oil like Nigeria and other countries, but then Kenya lives off tourism. Every time I go there, you see African Americans, people from other races, they are there trooping in, going to the zoo, seeing lions and all that. So they make money from these things. But how many other African countries can harness the potentials and the human and natural resources that they have to lure their citizens in diaspora to come back here? Another very big challenge is the government needs to work on issues of security. I travel around. Every time I travel, I don't just go to the capital cities. I go around the rural areas to also feel the pulse there. Kenya is also having challenges with the Al-Shabaab, what we have here as a terrorism too. So a lot needs to be done by the government to put things in place, and that way we can have a society where literally African Americans will ordinarily want to come. Many of them, like I said earlier, they find time to do vacations. They go to Senegal, they go to Tanzania, they go to the Gambia. Ghana is also another place where you have lots of tourism, lots of tourists come over. But we're looking at African Americans identifying their roots and also being able to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to come back and see how I can join and contribute my quota in making a success out of my country. So sometimes it's a bit dicey, because what home means to one person might not also be what home means to the other. That's my take.
I totally agree. I put this graphic up here because I wanted folks to be able to see it and understand that very few Black Americans have passports. That's one issue that you have, right? And then of course they need to really, like you were saying, is to understand that it's an investment. And I think the market is, if you're a Black American and you're making minimum wage in America, you're living paycheck to paycheck, and if you're working 2-3 jobs just to make the ends meet, or if you're on welfare and government assistance because you can't make ends meet, or if you're in business and your business can't grow because it's the racism or discrimination or things like that, those are the ones that need a freaking trip to Africa. Here's Cardi B, you guys. She went to Nigeria. She did a concert. She had a great time. Cardi B is mixed a little bit. She's not a full Black American girl, but in the day, she saw it. And the article that we were talking about and showcasing was talking about how she is missing Africa now. So I believe that they should really market to broke Black Americans that didn't graduate college. If you're struggling, you don't have anything left in America, that's the market, I think, that should be like, okay, here's February, it's tax season, getting that tax return, get you a damn passport, and get you a ticket.
But another thing, Karim, you need to know, it's a laudable one, but another thing we also must understand that human beings are naturally proud people. So it takes courage for someone who needs help to first accept that, you know what? I'm here in America. Things are not working well. Why don't I try somewhere else? So it's not just for Black African Americans. So you still find other people from other countries, or let me say other races, get to a particular country and with a high hopes. A lot of times there's been a lot of deceptions as well. It's not everything you see in movies is what it is in real life. I heard when you were talking with one of your guests some time back that a lot of times people just think everyone in America is rich or everyone in the UK is rich. We still have the poor people there, just like you have kids roaming the streets, kids who've not eaten all through the day. We have all that everywhere in the country. So that is where the problem starts from. We have issues like that. There are a lot of illegal immigrants, a lot of people who have spent 10-15 years in America, in UK and other countries, and they don't have their papers. What are they going to tell their loved ones
they've lived a fake life all these years, snapping pictures near a Lamborghini, going to Porsche hotels or very flashy resort centers and snap pictures and tag it, cruising life, life is good, American life, the American dream. And they keep posting pictures online that very few people know that they are not working. So it takes a lot. And yes, I agree with you that Africa should begin to make it fashionable. But like I said when we started the show, it's a two-way thing. It's a two-side to a coin. It's a two-way story. Because yes, we might have racism in America or wherever, but we also have tribalism in Africa. We have ethnicity. We have an African continent that is driven by cultural beliefs and traditional beliefs, which is very passionate to them. So you might even find people within the same country, but they are divided because of ethnicity, because of culture, because of just one little thing will just divide them. And you begin to wonder, people who you want to come back, I mean, to some extent, other countries are liberal. I heard you talking about protests that brought about women being able to vote, that brought about minorities being also having a voice and all that. But so we're asking now, government make this environment okay for our brothers and sisters abroad to come back home. But have we also dealt with the issues we have on ground? It will shock you sometimes that even in marriage, a girl may not be allowed to marry someone she loves, because they now start saying, oh, she's not his class, she's not from his immediate tribe, she's not from the ethnicity, the culture is different from this. So there's a whole lot of burden that Africa also needs to trash to make it an all-encompassing. Why are people going to America? Why are people staying back in America? Yes, we know there is racism and it's becoming an increasing thing, no thanks to social media. But in the psyche of a lot of people, it is a place where everyone can go and become something. Yes, we know issues are coming up, but then a lot is also impeding people in their country. So you have people who are drawn enemies based on political affiliation, as simple as political affiliations. We've seen husbands and couples who got divorced, who got killed because they were arguing over which party do you belong and which party the other person belongs. We've found parents who disown their children by virtue of the fact that, you know what, you're in love with somebody from that country, that village. Well, in our culture, that village is not supposed to get married to this place. So we need to it's a holistic thing that we African leaders have to do a whole lot. You know, another very big issue they have to deal with is the power supply. There's really a whole lot of discouragement when it comes to power supply, and that is where businesses thrive. Because the modern day business is more about entrepreneurial skills, ICT, internet enabled things. For today, I had to look for where to charge my phones so I could be on your show, because there's not been electricity since yesterday. So you don't expect someone who's lived in a country where everything is okay, there's lights 24 hours, you could hardly charge your phone because you know there'll be light anytime you want to come to a country. And then, I mean, there will be cultural shocks, you know, and you tell someone who's always been on the internet, well, okay, look, let's even take a typical example of the COVID-19. You know, they say social distancing, stay at home, lockdown, but you will agree that it didn't work in Africa. Because when we started off the lockdown in Africa, when the first case came in Nigeria in February, I was on so many radio stations to be a guest, and I told them, look, it won't work. Lockdown will not work in Africa, particularly in Nigeria, because unlike abroad, the government has each citizen's address, they have the security numbers, everything is done systematically. The government knows where every citizen is. The African economy is wired in a way that everyone is a local entrepreneur. So you must go out to get what to eat for that day. The African business is driven by a day-to-day activity. So you find a lot of people not dying from COVID-19, but they are dying from hunger. They are dying from losing their jobs, and the burden is a lot more on the women. And that's why my NGO is also doing a whole lot to sensitize women, sensitize youth to also find a way of, building up their skills, because the burden sometimes falls on the woman. Her husbands die out of going out to source for living, and then she gets burdened, she becomes a widow, and then she has to take care of her children, and she's not employed. She's not educated. And that's why we're also fighting for the girl child education, because we believe that if girls are trained, if girls have the opportunity like the boy child have, Africa still has this crazy culture where they think the boy is the supreme. If you have 6 girls, 6 daughters, in Africa, it's still not a term like you have children. Until you have a male child, they feel that it's a male child who will carry your name and all that. And so sometimes if a parent has the opportunity to train either the boy child or the girl child in school, majority of parents would want to train the boy child, because they assume the girl child will go on and marry off, and then the family name will not be there. So we are saying parents should begin to also train their girl child, because when you train your girl child, one, she becomes empowered. So she won't suffer gender-based violence. So she won't get into any relationship and then she has to stay because she can't leave. So she doesn't know how to take care of herself. Her husband has always been the breadwinner. And then she will also become better mother. Statistics have shown that with girls who at least have the basic education, they go on to become better mothers. When their kids are sick, they know what to do at every point in time before they take them to the hospital. So yes, I agree with you, because while you want to help, the person you are helping should also be willing to be helped.
In the world. Because remember, in America, for you to succeed at anything, and a lot of Africans, I don't really understand this part of it, because they never really had slavery. They never really had the Jim Crow laws, the discrimination. They've never been hung. So a lot of Black Africans that I know, that I work with, and some of my best friends here in the Philippines, we've had to overachieve our whole life just to fit in. So when we go abroad, whether it's Africa or anywhere, or Asia or wherever we go, usually we can do very well, because just that burden of the racism, that's really big pressure for us. And the racism holds you out of opportunities. And a lot of Blacks that may have a regular job, or that had a job and now they have no job, they could go to Africa, especially Nigeria that's developed, or Ghana. They could go to these places, open a business, and they could do pretty well, because they would be catering to a different clientele. I mean, like a restaurant, simple businesses that in the States they maybe couldn't do.
People can live in Africa and all that, but we still find traces of Africans hating Africans. But I keep asking myself, aren't there humane ways of resolving issues? Like when we talk about the Floyd thing, weren't there humane ways of getting him arrested? Did you have to stick your knee on his neck? So we keep looking at all this. You ask people to come back to Africa, and then for South Africa, you still find South Africans hating other Black nationals. And like I said when we started, there's a whole lot that the African continent still finds hard. There are countries in Africa that you still need visas to go to. So African leaders need to also begin to psych the minds of African Americans. So as in, it will just be like, you know what, Karim, I'm going to Nigeria. You know what, I'm going to Senegal. The visa issues were terrible.
I'll tell you this, is that remember, most Africans, and Americans included, are comparing America today, not America 100 years ago. So 100 years ago, niggas couldn't travel either without papers. Or even 50 years ago, 1950 was the first Black American to play in the NBA. They need to understand is that, like, if an African goes to America right now, great, because they've killed 1 million of your forefathers and your family in America for you to be able to drink the water, for you to be able to buy that house, for you to be able to shop at the Gucci store.
To even mingle and have education.
Yeah, remember, they fought for you to even have the weave you have in your hair, right? The weave didn't just come, we had nigga hair.
Yeah.
A Black person in America, for example, could go to Africa for $1,000, open a shop, another $1,000, have a plane ticket, another $1,000 live for the month, or 2 months or 3 months, so $5,000, and they're in Africa for a couple 3 months, and they can have a shop there.
Yeah, and it's huge. Like I said earlier on, remember the dollar power to naira. So with fewer dollars, you could get more things to achieve. A few settings here and there, and the business is being stopped. So yes, I understand you when you said African Americans could come together and put businesses together. In your little state of feeling you are broke in America. If you put that money
Yes.
together and get someone who is very resourceful here in Africa, you could get so much going, and you could even come back and see what it is, you know.
And I tell you this thing too, that a lot of people, we call it 50 times earnings. Black folks, we always don't understand. And the fact is that even them, when they go there for less money and they invest in a small business there, for example, right? Their knowledge that may not be appreciated in America, you may be called ghetto in America, right? But you take that same hood
Yeah.
shop to Africa and you put it there, and you're the number one shop in the city.
Yeah, and what many African Americans don't also understand is that let's even take education, for instance. A lot of Africans go abroad to school to study
Yes.
because
Thank you, sir.
research has shown that even when you come back to Africa, when there are job opportunities and you submit your CV, employers in Africa tend to tilt towards when you have foreign certificates. So they see a London university, a US university, a degree. They first of all tend to want to take that person, you know, give that person a preferential treatment and feel, oh yeah, the person's been more exposed because of the education system outside the country and all that. Even in the movie industry, the Nigerian movie industry, at some point, the actors and the practitioners were revolting that a lot of roles were going to actors or actresses who schooled abroad or who lived abroad and returned to Nigeria. The entertainment industry is so a huge platform for African Americans and even people from the diaspora. People who even do behind the scene jobs. Take for instance, the fashion designers, the makeup artists that you talked about. A lot of them are returnees from America and other countries. Because like I said earlier on, there's a psyche that for you who haven't lived abroad, it's a system that works. We all can't obviously deny that. So they know you have gone through regiments of getting good training. So you'll be able to use it. So if you line up 3 people and a returnee is amongst them, they'll rather give that makeup deal to a returnee and say, yeah, we know you will get us good products, you won't compromise the quality. So a whole lot of opportunities are here that African Americans are not really looking at. They should take a trip here and see things for themselves, and they will marvel at a whole lot of opportunities are here.
And that's what I was trying to say. They would benefit most by going and traveling abroad in general because of the conversion rate and the fact that when they go to Africa or they go to any country, when they get there, they're a commodity. You know what I'm saying?
People are like, I mean, you've had opportunities to stay outside Nigeria, so why are you not picking it up? So here I am talking to regular African Americans, regular Black people. I'm just saying to you, you know what? No matter the discouragements you see, no matter the racism, no matter what kind of hatred you see, the point is, if you don't give them a chance, no one will bring you down. So it starts with you. First of all, you have to stop self-denying. Now you need to tell yourself, hey, I know I've messed up in XYZ, but I think I need to keep it up. We are resilient people. We are hardworking people. We need to stay positive. We need to also look beyond what we're doing. Like I said earlier on, just stop being in your comfort zone. There's a whole lot you can achieve. So it doesn't matter what you see right now. Like Karim has always said, the freedom or part of the freedom we are enjoying today is because a whole lot of people fought for it so many decades ago, and they are still fighting for it. So Black Lives Matters or and other things, xenophobia and all that, everyone is in the forefront fighting for whatever spaces that they need to acquire. So I'm telling that Black girl, I'm telling that Black guy, I'm telling that Black entrepreneur, whatever it is you're doing, do it well. Explore, partner, synergize, look around, ask questions. Sometimes people get too carried away with being accomplished in their own zone and not also find out what they can do a little bit differently, you know. So look around, ask people questions, because if you don't get to also find what it is like from other climes, you may just think you're doing the best and you're not. You may just even be sitting on pools of opportunities with just a phone call to learn more. Just a partnership will help you grow your business. Look around Africa. I know there's been a lot of maybe the Yahoo Yahoo thing, the betrayal, the not getting to find people who are trustworthy. But trust me, for every 100%, you will find some that are good. Link up and do businesses with them. There are people even waiting right here to say, okay, you know what, invest your money here. Let's get lawyers, let's draft an agreement. After XYZ time, we check the records and see all that. You just need to break that yoke. And I want to thank Karim also for having me. You can also check me out at my Twitter handle at Ambassador Gabari. On Facebook is Ambassador Emmanuel Gabari. And yes, my organization, African Focus for Youth Development, is also open for whatever collaborations. We do a whole lot for people, sometimes even from outside the country. People tell us, okay, we want you to organize this for young people, for women, for this and that. And we could even bring them in as guest speakers and all that. So there are a whole lot that we can do together. We believe it's a one world, and that was why I did that song called One World, One Family. The world is a global village now. Everyone should begin to learn how we can live together in peace and unity. And lastly, thank you, Karim, for having me on the show. It's been a mind-blowing. I've learned so much from even just talking with you here and all that. And I thank you so much. Yes, for my songs, just search Ambassador Emmanuel Gabari Music. You will find all my songs there. I'm on Reverb Nation. I'm on SoundCloud. I'm on Google. So just type Ambassador Emmanuel Gabari. Thank you very much.